On the front lines with Ukraine's killer drone pilot. When Ukraine went to war in 2014, it was a war of trenches and tanks. But in recent years, the front line has gone digital. Now it is controlled by killer drone pilots like Kapral Roman Shcherbak. They direct unmanned aerial vehicles to strike at key Russian positions with deadly accuracy. And they do it all while hiding from Russian counterattacks, sometimes miles from the battlefield. The Wall Street Journal spent time with Ukrainian drone operators who use modified commercial drones to hunt Russian tanks and artillery. One pilot spoke about his drone training and how he took out an enemy tank worth $3 million. He was paid just $300 a month for his work. I saw how much this equipment cost, and I thought, wow, I can destroy a $3 million target for a few $100, he said. The following is an excerpt from the article published by the Wall Street Journal on February 8, 2023, titled, On the Front Lines with Ukraine's Killer Drone Pilot. It was written by Ian Lovett, Yaroslav Trofimov, and Matthew Luxmore. At dawn, Kapral Roman Shcherbak surveyed his domain. Before him on a laptop screen, a field of tall grass rippled in the wind. Hidden somewhere within it, a Russian tank crew was preparing their armored vehicle for the day ahead. Mr. Shcherbak, a 33-year-old former truck driver, made a cross-haired reticle appear on the screen, over the spot where he believed the tank to be. Then he called down to his assistant. "Fire," he said quietly. A small drone rose silently from a nearby tree line and streaked toward the target. Within seconds, it was over the tank and dropped a small explosive, sending up a puff of dirt and knocking out the engine. As the crew scrambled out, Mr. Shcherbak made a second reticle appear on his screen, this one over the fleeing soldiers. He directed the drone toward them, then pressed fire again. "One of them has already been hit," he said, watching the second man drop to the ground. Mr. Shcherbak wasn't there when the drone struck. He had moved to a hidden command post more than 2 miles from the front line. His unit, part of Ukraine's 56th Brigade, had pushed the Russians back over 3 miles from the village of Klishchivka in the Donetsk region. To do that, they had given up something they needed to win the war: land. By ceding territory, they had created space to deploy their weapons. That sounds easy, but it's part of a new kind of warfare in which maneuver and firepower have been replaced by observation and precision. Instead of moving infantry forward, they sent drones to locate and mark targets. Then they called in artillery to destroy them. This is how modern armies fight now. Every big power from China to France to Russia to the US is buying drones that can fly deep into contested areas and come back home safely. They are changing the rules of modern warfare. For Ukraine, the shift has been especially dramatic. Russia's army has 10 times as many tanks, 5 times as many warplanes, and twice as many artillery as Ukraine's. So its forces rely on cheap but deadly drones to level the playing field. When Russian troops advanced in September, Ukrainian forces used commercial drones to scout their positions, then directed artillery fire on them. In some cases, they simply blew up the Russian trucks carrying ammunition to the front. Ukraine's Western allies are providing more powerful weaponry, but those weapons will take months to arrive. So Kyiv has had to make do with what it had, including scores of Soviet-era drones that hadn't been maintained and were obsolete before the war. Fixing them has fallen to people like Seri, a 34-year-old former auto mechanic who goes by only one name. His shop resembles a cross between a garage and an electronics store. Circuit boards, wires, and other components are strewn across a table in the middle of the room. On another table sits a half-disassembled drone with a dented wing. Fixing these drones isn't brain surgery, but it is painstaking work. Drones have a lot of parts, and each one has to be in perfect working order, or the whole thing could blow up. That's not just dangerous for the people around them, but it also wastes expensive equipment that Ukraine can ill afford to lose. Serhiy meticulously inspects the circuit board, checking each component with a magnifying glass. He replaces some capacitors and tests the motors one by one. They aren't afraid of water, but they hate falls. he says of the drones. After the repairs, he attaches wings and tail fins and runs the propeller through its paces. At the moment, he is repairing a drone that costs roughly $50,000. But later he will work on a converted commercial drone that costs just $1,500. These so-called FPV drones can be bought off the shelf, flown straight out of the box, and converted to carry small bombs. Ukrainian forces have taken to them because they are light enough to be dropped from a plane or helicopter, fast enough to evade anti-aircraft missiles, and small enough to be carried by infantry. Russia uses similar converted commercial drones, meaning the two sides are often hunting each other's drones. The result is a high-tech duel, hundreds of feet above the battlefield. But while the duels are high-tech, the tactics are old. Russian and Ukrainian drone pilots usually attack each other's reconnaissance drones, which don't carry any weapons, but can relay information back to ground forces. Destroying those drones doesn't necessarily help on the ground. Taking out Russian artillery, tanks, or other combat vehicles does. But that requires skill. For every mission, pilots run the risk of being detected and attacked by Russian air defenses. If they are spotted, Ukrainian commanders may need to divert precious firepower away from assaults on the ground to defend them. That means the pilots flying these expensive, dangerous missions tend to be young men with little combat experience. Many are barely old enough to shave. And they have to be brave, too. They watch their drone approach the target, then wait for the explosion. Sometimes they have to try multiple times to hit their target. If the drone flies past the target without exploding, the pilot has to fly it back around and hope that Russian air defenses don't shoot it down. These pilots receive only a few hours of flight training. Then they're on their own. Most haven't had combat flight training, and many have never even flown a plane before going into combat. All they get is an operations manual and a list of prohibited targets. Beyond that, they're on their own. You learn a lot sitting on your butt, watching videos and reading stuff online, says one young pilot. But it's better to sit on your butt than to lie on your back under the earth staring at the sky. Drone pilots like Mr. Sherbak undergo psychological screening before they start flying combat missions. They have to be able to remain calm under extreme pressure. A single mistake could change the outcome of a battle. But drone warfare is only going to become more common, and Ukraine needs its pilots to be ready. So Mr. Sherbak takes a deep breath and focuses on the task at hand. He directs his drone toward its next target, a group of Russian soldiers trying to repair a damaged tank. It's hard work, but someone's got to do it. And that brings us to the question, what do you think about the use of drones in modern warfare? Let me know in the comments below. Now, if you want to go deeper into the topic, check out our other videos on drone warfare, including how America's Skynet drone army will wage the next war. Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching.